give us a couple of minutes of what you think's happening with inflation, where you think we're headed, and indeed when you think we're going to raise rates here.
Yeah, of course. So a lot of the attention's been really focused on Russia-Ukraine in the last few weeks. So we've actually had a bit of central bank action for the first time in a while, and in particular coming from the US and Europe in particular. So overnight in the US, they posted again another 40-year high inflation read that came in 7.9%. Now, just about the price of everything is surging. We're seeing gas, food, housing costs. They're among the most increased. And as well, we've seen gas prices surge in the US. They've surged 62 cents a gallon to $4.32 a gallon, and that's before the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So just think about that. That's not even pricing in the last 2 or 3 weeks of action where the price of oil's gone up to $110, $120 a barrel. So there still could be some way to go. I do have a chart that perfectly depicts that. If you look at the chart, we're going through an inflationary period that far surpasses that we saw in 2008, and we're really breaking out of this low inflation rate period, which we've seen over the last decade. And I'll flow over to the second area, which is Europe and the Eurozone, because they also said the same thing, was we're transitioning out of this low inflation era into a high inflation era. I've got a chart from the ECB where Christine Lagarde, they actually upped their inflation forecasts for 2022. They first sat at 3.2%, as you can see on the chart, and now they've jumped up to 5.1%. But I also notice in the chart that they're very optimistic about getting it back down under 2% the next year, which a lot of economists and a lot of pundits are saying might not be the case. So what does that open up for the ECB? They've came straight ahead and said, we're going to start reducing the balance sheet and we're going to begin tapering, which is something that I suppose we haven't heard of them do for a long time. And it doesn't really match up with what's happening in Europe because it's a very tumultuous period. Equity markets are being hit, financial markets are unstable, but they've made that decision to start tapering. Now inflation's high, reducing the balance sheet. What's next? It's, of course, going to be rates. Now, we can all agree, I think, that the ECB is going to be very late to the party when it comes to rates, but they've at least taken that first step, and it's very interesting. And then the final piece of central bank news for the week is domestically, the RBA. Our deputy governor, his name is Guy Debelle, he actually stood down from his position as deputy governor, leaving poor Philip Lowe all by himself. Philip Lowe's only got about 6 months to go before he would have to resign. There's a period that you have to serve. But Guy Debelle recently had his period as deputy extended for 5 years. So he was tipped to take Mr. Lowe's spot in a couple months' time. Where has he gone? He's gone to the private sector and he's joined Twiggy Forrest at the Fortescue Future Industries Fund. So this is them trying to get in green industry and steel. So maybe a little bit more lucrative for him than working in a government agency, but that's in the RBA. And that's your central bank wrap for the week.
Wonderful.